while Jane runs a cash-only roadside grill. She's employed but invisible. She uses our roads daily, yet hasn't put a single cent into the Social Security pot in over 20 years. While Julian is a temporary leak, Jane is a silent parasite. She looks like a success story, but she's draining the system's lifeblood, leaving the bucket bone dry for everyone when she eventually needs a pension. Moderator, honorable judges, my esteemed opponents, the media, the audience, and to a Dominica that is ready for the truth. Good afternoon. I am here today to assert that the growth in the informal sector poses a greater threat, a greater challenge to the sustainability of Dominica's social security system than unemployment in the formal sector. I will begin by defining a few key terms to ensure truthfulness of my points. According to national labor statistics, almost 42% of our workforce operates informally, without contracts, without paying taxes, and without contributing to social security. Ask yourselves this: how do you regulate what leaves no footprints? How do you enforce contributions income that are never reported? How do you ensure the system survives when benefits paid outstrip contributions? This is not a small problem. It is a slow leak, silently draining resources meant for everyone. It is like trying to build a house on sand. No matter how strong the walls, the foundation crumbles.
Let us set the record straight by defining our terms, so we compare apples with apples and not illusions with reality. Growth, according to the Economic Policy Institute, refers to a sustained increase in the proportion of workers engaged in non-traditional employment. Informal sector, according to the International Labour Organization, ILO, refers to all jobs in unincorporated enterprises that produce at least some of their goods or services for sale or barter, which are not registered and or do not keep a complete set of accounts. Greater challenge, according to the Oxford Dictionary, refers to it. To dismantle this motion, the opposition charts a clear and deliberate course. 3 pillars, 3 truths, and 1 unmistakable conclusion. 1. The immediate hemorrhage. 2. The demographic time bomb. And 3. The policy paradox. My able colleague will then follow by exposing the 108% trap, the productivity gap, the brain drain that represents a permanent amputation for our future, and the administrative load fallacy, along with a few recommendations. My first pillar, the immediate hemorrhage, begins where the damage is most urgent: the money. Formal sector unemployment is a burst pipe, not a slow drip. When formal employment in Dominica ticks downward, the DSS doesn't stagnate, it hemorrhages. My opponents are making claim on ifs and buts, since not even the DSS has statistics of the present status of the growth of informal sector. It's all based on assumption. But for argument's sake, let's consider this. A formal worker earning $7,000 a month contributes over $1,000 monthly. When that job is lost, that $1,000 vanishes instantly. This is a high-value, predictable contribution done forever. In contrast, it will take about 10 informal vendors to replace that single bank manager's contribution. People will hope to one day bring into the system. And yes, informality is a challenge worth addressing. Across the Caribbean, governments and boards are rolling up their sleeves. In Guyana and Anguilla, the ILO is actively partnering with social security institutions to formalize the informal. You can incentivize, simplify, and educate your way into a vendor's pocket. You can make compliance easier, cheaper, and more attractive. But here is where the paradox bites. You cannot incentivize a bankrupt company to pay contributions. You cannot simplify your way out of a recession. You cannot educate a laid-off worker into a contributory bracket they no longer occupy. The informal sector is a dynamic landscape. Difficult, yes, but shapeable. Formal unemployment, however, is not a policy inconvenience. It is a house on fire. So I put the question plainly. Do we spend our energy fixing the leaky faucet of informality? Or do we turn our full attention to the Category 5 hurricane of formal unemployment that is ripping the roof clean off the system? Because, honorable judges, you cannot collect contributions from workers who no longer have jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, do not be seduced by the mirage of the informal sector. Yes, it is large. Yes, it is growing. But potential is not pension, and aspiration does not pay benefits.
The idea that what you don't know can't hurt you. But in the case of the Dominica Social Security, DSS, the income we are taxing is exactly what is breaking the system. As the second speaker for the proposition, I am here to prove that while unemployment is a visible wound, the informal sector is the hidden infection draining our future. To demonstrate the threat this poses, I will focus on two critical pillars. One, the financial hemorrhage. I will prove how an unregistered workforce creates a systematic revenue leak. Two, the death of the social contract, proving that a free rider culture breaks public trust. Firstly, Madam Moderator, we are witnessing a structural erosion of the DSS ability to fulfill its promise. As Mrs. Camacha Lloyd, a communicator and marketing officer of the DSS, has stated, it is incredibly difficult to monitor the self-employed. But Madam Moderator, difficulty is not an excuse for inaction.
Let me begin by commending my colleague for her passionate address. She has laid the foundation. I am here to build the house. My opponents would have you believe that the informal sector is the antagonist in this story, the thief stealing from the purse. But they are looking for a needle in the wrong haystack. The true assassin of our system is not the man working off the books. It is the man who cannot work at all. Formal sector unemployment is a double-edged sword that cuts deeper and bleeds faster than any informal activity ever could. There are 4 counts in this indictment. 1, the 108% trap. 2, the productivity gap. 3, brain drain, which is the permanent amputation of our future. And 4, the administrative load fallacy. Let us look at the 108% trap. A chilling reality from Dominica's Social Security 2020 annual report, published in 2024, states that the total benefits expenditure reached 108% of contributions income. The chairman of this report admits, and I quote, "For every $1 of contributions income collected, the institution paid out $1.08 in benefit payments." End of quote. Where did that extra 8 cents come from? It was stripped from our investment income. This is cannibalizing our children's future. When a formal worker is laid off, the pension system suffers a double whammy. This is because the $1 income vanishes instantly, and the DSS is hit with a redundancy claim.
To begin, my opponents indicted that informal employment is a parasite sucking the social security because they come when they need pension or benefits. But it is of note to tell you that the DSS operates under the no contribution, no benefits. Because for you to claim pension or benefits from the DSS, you must have a number of credits acquired for you to claim benefits. So once you don't contribute, no benefits. My opponents also talked about the rapidly growing informal sector is affecting the DSS. My opponent seems to forget we are talking about formal unemployment. As I stated earlier, as formal jobs disappear, the dependency ratio climbs. When people lose their jobs, they tend to go to the DSS to collect benefits. Even when they don't lose their jobs, they have to go for sick leave, benefits, this and that benefits. My wife is pregnant, benefits, stuff like that. But that is if you have a number of contributions with the DSS.
This topic is more than just a debate. It is a matter of national interest. My colleague and I are honored to support the move. The Dominican Social Security system should introduce unemployment benefits, even if it requires restructuring existing benefits and/or contribution rates. My esteemed audience, the Dominican Social Security (DSS) was established in February 1976. Now, 50 years later, the structure of that system has largely remained the same. In contrast, our society and economy have evolved. So I ask, is it not necessary to implement responsive social policies that truly reflect the realities faced by today's workers?
Today, we debate whether the Dominican Social Security should introduce an unemployment benefit, even if it means restructuring benefits and/or contribution rates. My colleague and I firmly reject this proposal. We do so not because we think unemployment is not a real problem, not because we do not care about unemployed workers, but because a promise you cannot afford to keep is not kindness. It is a trap. Today, the proposition is asking Dominic to gamble with a system that workers have spent decades building, contribution by contribution, payslip by payslip. We are here to explain why that gamble is far too dangerous.
I rise today to further affirm that the Dominican Social Security system should introduce unemployment benefits, even if it requires restructuring existing benefits and/or increasing contribution rates. At the heart of this debate lies a fundamental principle of equity. As the great Nelson Mandela once said, quote, "To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity," end quote. These powerful words remind us that social protection is not merely a policy choice, but a moral responsibility. It is on this principle that I present my two arguments. One, Social Security is a social institution designed to safeguard citizens, thus, restructuring benefits to include unemployment protection aligns with key human rights.
My colleague has already done heavy lifting, and I stand firmly by her definitions and her arguments. My role today is to drive 3 heavy nails into the coffin of this proposal. 1. Dominica does not yet have the infrastructure to run unemployment insurance. 2. Dominica's informal economy is a breeding ground for fraud. And 3. We need to build on what already exists. Let's get right into it. This is what it is. According to the International Labour Organization, the ILO, effective unemployment systems depend on job training programs, employment referral services, and robust administrative monitoring. These are mechanisms that help people return to work. Judges, the ILO is clear. Unemployment insurance cannot work without job placement services, employment counseling, and systems to monitor whether claimants are actually looking for work. ILO Ascension Pignati 2019. Without these, people can claim benefits while still working, and the truly needy fall through the cracks. This is why the ILO itself says most developing countries rely on employment protection law instead of unemployment insurance, because they do not yet have the infrastructure to run it properly. ILO 2019. We do not have these mechanisms in place, nor do we have the foundation. Yet, the proposition wants to build the roof. Judges, sassy, we shall stay. Introducing unemployment insurance without proper infrastructure is like installing a smoke alarm in a building with no spring it makes you feel protected. But when the fire comes, nothing will actually work. Second nail in the coffin. Fraud in an informal economy. Here is something the proposition has been remarkably quiet about. Dominica has a large informal economy. Farming, domestic work, market trading, much of it is unregistered and much of it is undocumented. Unemployment insurance depends entirely on accurate records. Proof of employment, proof of job loss, proof of income. Without these records, the system cannot distinguish the genuinely unemployed from those simply taking advantage. And fraud does not require sophisticated criminals. It simply requires a gap in the system. The United States, with some of the most advanced monitoring systems on earth, paid out over $45 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims during the COVID-19 pandemic. U.S. Department of Labor, 2022. Fake IDs, false claims, billions lost. Now ask yourself, if fraud flourishes in countries with more formal economies, what happens in Dominica, where a significant share of economic activity leaves no paper trail whatsoever? And judges, let us not be naive. A worker loses his formal job, genuinely, legitimately, but he's earning decent money doing odd jobs, running a small side business, trading at the markets. Cash in hand, no contract, no record. Yet every month, he's still collecting his unemployment benefits. Because in Dominica's informal economy, there is no system to flag it. There is no mechanism to detect it. No system to flag it. And no way to stop it. He is not destitute, but he's being paid as if he is. Judges, we are not saying every Dominican is dishonest. We are saying the system makes honesty optional. And in a country where the fund is already under strain, we simply cannot afford that. And the third and final nail to seal the coffin, build on what already exists. We are not opposed to protecting workers. We are opposed to abandoning a system that works in favor of one that may not. Dominica already has a redundancy fund. When a worker is made redundant, they receive severance pay. Directly, predictably, immediately. No complex eligibility assessments. No lengthy waiting periods. No administrative machinery that has not yet been built. The ILO has recognized that for small economies, severance pay systems are often more practical and more sustainable than full unemployment insurance schemes. The proposition wants to dismantle that certainty and replace it with complexity in a system that cannot handle that complexity. Sometimes, strength is not about building something new. It's about what works. In closing, we do not ask you to abandon the unemployed. We ask you to be honest about what Dominica can deliver. Because a safety net full of holes does not catch anyone. Build the foundation first. Protect what works. And then, and only then, can this conversation begin. I thank you.